This episode, Knowing Your Numbers. Well, John and I have been mentoring some contractors, helping them to grow successful businesses. We decided to do a show on knowing your numbers, both financially and operationally, meaning, how much time does it take you to do a job? Are you charging enough? And so forth and so on. These principles also apply to the maintenance around your home. So if you're a homeowner, if you're home maintenance and repair, you need to understand exactly what things cost as far as owning a home to go along with it. So we're going to touch a little bit on both of these things, but that's what this show is all about. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition's entitled Knowing Your Numbers. And to help me explain, here's my ever cheerful co-host and old buddy, Johnny. Johnny, if I had to ask you one thing about your numbers, could you give me something besides your prison ID number?
Yeah, I don't even know what my weight is anymore, so nor do I want to know. my blood
Johnny,
pressure.
You've been going to the gym. Your blood pressure and your weight numbers should be going down. They should be going down.
Yeah, I know. I know my finances are not as good as they used to be based upon this economy.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because it's part of the reason why I wanted to do this show also, is that the economy's slowing up a little bit, and it's becoming time to really get a really good handle on what's going on with the financials in your business and or your personal life, so that you kind of have an idea that you're not going to get nailed coming up here if things really turn south. Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, right.
It's an important point to make. I think one of the worst things is that it's a surprise.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be surprised, especially come this winter. So, anyways, Larry, I know that you want to, kind of go into this. So why don't you kind of kick this thing off here?
All right. Well, first off, we just got to put out the great disclaimer: we're not accountants, and we're not giving any kind of, we're just giving you we're giving you some ideas to think about when it comes to these things. So I thought we'd do three things. I thought we'd do financial, operational, and then and part of operational is time management also. So because these are two different areas that are really, really important if you're doing either a home project or you're working, you work as a handyman, either way. But knowing your financial numbers is really, really important. And I always break it down into basically three really simple ideas. First is profitability. If you're going to be in business, folks, you're in business to make a profit. Now, that doesn't mean you're making huge margin, but I don't even want to get into a discussion about margin. I just want you to make sure that your income minus your expenses is a positive number. Right, John? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not on the profitable side, there might be a couple of reasons. There might be a couple of reasons for that, but that's what you need to strive for. Otherwise, if you're not growing, you're going, and if you're losing money, you're something's
got to change. Yeah,
something's got to change. Something's got to change.
And I know that it seems simple, but even on a W-2 basis, if you work on a W-2 basis, I ask a lot of people these questions. How much do you make? Everybody knows how much they make, but how much do you spend, and where do you spend that money? And that's really the big difference. And you just, you have to have some kind of a system. There's software. You can do it via paper. You can do it all kinds of different ways, but you need to know what you're spending your money on, because the only thing you can really control is there's things you can control when it comes to spending money, and there's things you can't. So pretty much, you're going to pay some kind of a rent or a mortgage. You're going to pay for fuel. You're going to pay for food. Those are the big three. It's transportation, housing, and food, basically sustenance. Those are the big three. That's what most people spend their most money on. In a business, it basically is about the same thing. You've got transportation and labor and this and that. And so, but income minus expenses, and it needs to be positive. If it's not positive, you got to make some changes. That's the first part of it. And if you think about it, I know it sounds simple, but it's just numbers. Second thing I always look at is cash flow, right? Where does your money come from and when do you receive it? So in business, right? Receivables are everything, and people will put out terms out there for you. You know, we pay after 90 days. Well, I guess the question is, you go and do all this work today. Can you actually withstand that 90 days worth of cash flow versus going out and doing another job where you get paid today? So it's all, again, it's all about choices.
Yeah,
Cash flow is king. You
yeah,
know,
there are some, when you go into a big project with a contractor, they're taking a lot of or anything really. When you extend terms, that really puts a lot of burden on the other on those folks.
it's risky.
Yeah,
Comparatively risky.
yeah.
It
I
has
mean,
some risk.
in business, you always want to drive down, your day sales outstanding or your AR, accounts receivable. You always strive to do that. And then on the other side, always trying to drag out your suppliers. But that's for another topic.
I suggest you don't do that. But anyway,
But
it's, whatever.
But the but I'm serious is that it is a risk. It is a risk for them, and that's why you're going to do progress payments or something like that. Hey, for the handyman business, which is great. We pretty much get paid very quickly.
For the most part, yeah,
You
very
know,
rapidly.
so I don't really have to deal with that, but running a company and having to deal with that. This, that's a big part of business. That's the
And that's
issue.
why John is now a handyman, folks. One of the reasons, anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. One of the reasons. Yeah.
Yep.
So understand your cash flow, understand that the ebb and flow, and and cash flow also encompasses seasonality. So if in the handyman business, we don't really have a seasonal business per se, but we have some seasonality. There's certain times of the year that are a little slower than other times of the year. So understand that in a normal cycle you're going to see, it's going to slow up. Usually for me it always slows up a little bit right before Christmas, and
Yeah.
then it
Oh yeah.
picks
Absolutely.
and then it picks back up after the first of the year.
Yeah.
But there's always a couple of weeks there that I basically go on vacation or do something else because it slows up a lot. It
Yeah.
just slows up as a natural business cycle. But you can plan for that. I plan, we know it's coming. It's been the same for all the years we've been doing handyman. So it just is what it is. It's we're not trying to change it because we're probably not going to be able to change it. So
Yeah.
and then the other biggie that for me, this is just in the financial world, is know your net worth, right? So net worth is, this is Larry's description of net worth. It's the value of stuff minus what you owe on it or the debt that you have
Yep.
against it. And I like to calculate it as, what can I liquidate it for today,
Yep.
1 month, and 1 year or more. And I say that in that certain things, like if I had to generate cash today, I am probably going to have to sell some things at a deep discount. Although fortunately, the cannabis that I have, people will buy it pretty much at face value today. I don't have any cannabis, folks, that don't do that. Anyway, but it carries a different value. What I sell something for today is different than what I can sell it for in a month, and is different than
Right.
what I can sell it for in a year. And particularly for things like real estate, where there's going to be some time involved, even in great real estate times, it still takes a good 4 to 6 weeks to sell a property. It just does. It takes that
Right.
much time,
Right.
So
And I think you bring up a good point, and a lot of people, um, don't quite understand that, because if it really hits the fan and you have to liquidate some things, how much are can you generate off of what you have.
yeah, right. I mean,
um
if it really, if it goes to,
so
to bad.
yeah. So it's that, and I think encompassing these three things, I think you kind of get a picture of a responsible financial position in your life
Correct.
and business. And I think that's what you really want to go for, is to know these numbers, so that you're prepared. You don't have surprises. So every once in a while, sit down and calculate these things out. And if you have a business, it should be ongoing. But if you're a homeowner and you're just for yourself. You should be calculating this quite often, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and I agree with you, and I will tell you that in my life there have been many times when I thought, I'm up on what seems to be really hard times, like it's very stressful. It's like, man, I got to make this payment, blah blah blah. And then you go backwards and you look at your figures, like your net worth figure, and you look at some of the other things and you go, I'm not that bad off. This is just like a bump in the road. And that's been very helpful for me to
That's a good
to just
point.
understand that,
Yeah.
because like if you have to look at more than just today necessarily, because sometimes you're like, man, I gotta pay this, I gotta pay that, oh, I'm freaking broke, I need a new job or this or that or whatever your situation is. And then you really sit back and you take that reflection time. You kind of sit back and you slow things down in your head and you look at your numbers and you go, oh, I'm not that bad off. And oh, maybe I just need to divert a little money out of here for a short term thing, pay the bill, put the money back when you get it back. Put the money back, by the way, put the money back. But it's just it can help you. It helps your mental state. It helps your business. It helps everything about you. I firmly believe if you have a good handle on your finances, the rest of your life can be pretty easy. It
Hmm.
certainly allows you to devote mental energy to other things besides worrying about money. So, Johnny, do you have anything else? That's all I had. Those are my big three when it comes to knowing your numbers on the financial side. Is there anything? Am I missing anything?
No, I mean, I don't want to go into the minutia of any of
No,
this.
no,
This
no,
isn't,
no, no.
this isn't business, 101. But it's enough to get people started and to be able to think, especially for, some of, you younger folks out there that need to get a handle on this. And unfortunately, I see people that don't. Um, and when you don't, that's when life, when it throws you a curveball, you're going to be screwed. I mean,
Yes.
just be blunt.
Yep.
And you don't know
Really
where
true.
to turn. You don't know what to do.
Right. Exactly. So, all right. So with that, nothing additional to add, and that's our financial discussion. Let's talk about operational numbers, right? And I say operational, and basically this is how many hours there are in a week or a day or a year or whatever you want to call it, and how much do you want to work and how are you dividing up your time? And I am big on knowing these numbers because, like you, John, I don't like to work that much. No, that's not really true. I actually work a lot, but I
Well, you
want to have
said
a
you don't like to, which is
well,
different than do or don't. But yeah, nobody wants to.
well, yeah, but I mean, some of it is a question of efficiency. It's like
That's
I
right.
I don't work Saturdays and Sundays as a general rule. I do that intentionally because I need that recharge time in my life right now. Now, in the past, I have worked 7 days a week, many, 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 many a week. But right now, I need the recharge time. So I'm really working hard on making sure that I have that work life balance, if you want to call it that, whatever your particular flavor is. But I break it down into I have billable hours and non-billable hours. And billable hours for me are all about production. What job can I get done in X amount of time? And on a blowing and going week, I average about 30 to 35 billable hours a week. Now, that takes anywhere from 40 to 60 hours to achieve with by the time you count the non-billable hours. And and actually I'm always working towards that 40 hours a week, basically full time. But my billable is only about 30 to 35 hours a week if I'm working a full week. And that's a different number than what I call, that's production, meaning I'm going to produce about 30 hours a week. And then there's production support, which is everything else, like getting materials
Yeah,
all the
certainly.
paperwork and the management time and all that kind of stuff, estimating sales, getting out, talking to people about getting jobs and all that stuff. And that does not, I don't charge for estimates, although it just depends on who it is, but I don't charge for estimates as a general rule. Some people do, and that turns it into a billable hour, but we're not working on that. Um, I like to work on my business, not in my business, but that's still a production cost. That's, to me, that's non-productive. It's productive, but it's not productive. It doesn't generate cash for me. So, same thing with quoting and scheduling and research and learning new techniques and doing this podcast, and none of this generates revenue for us. So, do you add some things in here, Johnny?
Well, I'm listening. One of the things is that you make a good point, and if you're working on an hourly, like like handyman, right, in this
Right.
business, you bring up a good point because there's X amount of hours, and you're only going to get billed for how why, and it's going to be that those different. So if you're financially planning your business and you say, hey, I want to make X amount next year, you have to become more efficient, drive up your billable hours, raise raise your rates, whatever you think that you can do to achieve that. Those hours, it takes when you really break it down, it takes a lot of hours for those billable hours, if that makes sense.
It takes a lot
You,
more than people realize.
exactly. So I think you gave an example. Guys, I see. You go to any big gas station, and you see guys in there all the time with the big trucks and the big business and everything. These guys are on hourly. So, how long does it take to go into the gas station, fill up a
You
tank?
want to
And
know?
I know, and you fill up, 100-gallon tank or whatever, some of these, huge trucks, so on and so forth. And then you're running in and, what is it, 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Well, I did a time study of what it cost, when I was in the vending business because we were really route driven. I did a time study on
Here it is. Yeah.
myself. Yeah. And I found that just if I pulled into a gas station from the time that I turned into the gas station just to say, go get a drink, just a simple, why was I getting drinks at a gas station? Don't ask. But anyway, be that as it, because I was in the vending business, but be that as it may, minimum time it took me, minimum absolute fastest I could get in and out and back on the road. Now we're talking about turning in and then being back on the road like I hadn't even pulled in, 15 minutes. That was
Yeah.
the fastest. 12, I think 12 was my all-time record. 12 minutes, I made it back out and onto the road. 12 minutes. You don't think that's a lot until you do it 4 times a day. And now you're looking
That's
at an
exactly right.
hour.
That's
It's an
exactly it.
hour.
Yeah.
And it actually, in that case, it cost you money to do that, both figuratively and literally, because I was going in to buy stuff, so I was spending money. And I'm not saying don't take a break, don't get me wrong, it's not that, but be cognizant of what it takes to do that, and understand at the end of the day when it's 5 o'clock and you still have an hour's worth of work left and you're going, why is this taking me so long? That sometimes it's that kind of thing that eats up your day. It's some of the little things. In a previous show we talked about assortment packs and running up and down the stairs to
That's
go
right.
pick up a screw and a nail. And I would tell you that by the time you do, if you're upstairs, right, if you're upstairs in somebody's house on a 2,000 square foot house, just for example, I bet if you took and ran the stopwatch from the time you turned to go down the stairs and come back up, it'd take you 9 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd almost
Yeah.
guarantee that. And
And
if you have to do that multiple times, man, you wonder why it's 5 o'clock and you got an hour's worth of work left. You know,
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And not to mention we did. I think we talked about this on another episode. Was the time spent just in big box stores trying to.
it's huge. It's
That
huge.
that right there is just enormous. We don't have to rehash that, but to your point, it's a good way to kind of understand billable versus your
Versus
production
non-billable.
hours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And just touching on the big box stores, we did a whole show on this or a tip on it. I can't remember, but the apps, like the Home Depot and Lowe's app, I'm using those two because those are what I have. Those apps are great because they tell you the aisle and the section that the pieces are
yeah,
in. So if you're looking for XYZ, it tells you right where to go almost. And it's about 90% accurate, in my opinion, about
yeah,
90% of the
yeah.
time. Pretty darn good. And if you really are trying to cut down your time in a big box store, get the app. It doesn't cost you anything. It works great. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Keep going, Johnny. Sorry.
No,
I
go ahead.
digress.
Go ahead.
Well, it's just been a little tip for me, and I'm running around, and here's where I learned. I think where I learned that tip was, I think I was watching one of the employees, and they pulled up their own app.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
really? Okay, I can
yeah,
do that,
yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yep.
anyway, so I think that's part of the numbers gig, John. Do we need to add more here? Is there anything we're
No,
missing?
no, I think it's no, I think when you present this that way, you just kind of got to think about where you're spending your time.
Yeah, because
For me, and I'll just be, on the selfish standpoint side of things, I'm trying to increase my efficiency all the time. So I'm in and out. I can still charge. I can still make the same amount of money. But man, if I can save a half hour and still make the same amount of money, and I'm back home, hey, great.
it's a
Or I
huge
go
it's a
to another job, and I get
yeah.
it done. I knock it out. And it really bothers me when I just waste a lot of time, on meaningless stuff. And I'm not talking about, time that you need anyways, like you're trying to noodle stuff out and re-engineer maybe a little bit here or there.
Right.
I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm talking about just meaningless stuff that
Yeah,
you
just
really don't
the
have to.
day-to-day
So,
stuff.
yeah.
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 So one thing I just want to make a quick comment. So we put these two things together because, as they say, time equals money, right? But we really stress a lot more on the time side than we do on the financial side. And part of that reason is because time is the one thing you cannot get back. And I just want to throw out one more quick tip. And this has to do with your driving habits, because particularly John just said something and he talked about that half an hour difference. And Johnny, you know this, right? Here, living here in Atlanta as we do, that half an hour difference can mean the difference between a 20-minute ride
Oh,
home
the variability is
and an
is
hour and 20
incredible. Yeah, the
minutes. Yeah.
variability is incredible in any big city. In any big
Yeah.
city, doesn't matter.
And the key point to us is that sometimes your decisions can give you things you didn't expect, like bad traffic. But the tip is, I learned this again. I learned a lot in the vending business, but there's one thing I learned, folks. If you're going to leave for a job in the morning, leave at 6:50 instead of 7 o'clock. And you think 10 minutes doesn't matter, but it's a little bit of psychology. Everybody leaves at 7. And if you don't believe me, go out and sit on your street and look at what time everybody goes by you. You'll see it runs at 7,
Yeah.
7:30, 8. It's always on the half hour marks.
Yeah,
And
yeah, there is a
and
lot of truth to that.
and if you leave 10 minutes before that, you're ahead of this curve. And
Yeah,
it can, at least here in Atlanta, I can tell you, man, it can save you hours of travel time. Hours. I mean, it's like crazy. Like, you never thought 10 minutes could add up that much. Oh,
oh
it's
yeah, it
one of those
does.
places.
Yeah,
Woo.
yep.
So, all right. And Johnny, is there anything else we have here about knowing your numbers?
No, I mean, once again, I don't want to get into the weeds on a financial discussion, but just
Right,
we
right.
want to just do a little bit of high level, just get people thinking about
Y-
where their money is, what's tied up in what, and how much time you're really spending versus what you're billing.
Yeah, versus what you're billing, and understand they're both related, right?
Yeah.
Is what it is. So John, the other day I was sitting out in the yard. I got to tell you this story. So I'm sitting out in the yard. Speaking of numbers, I'm sitting out in the yard and I'm looking up at the sky and I'm having this thought. This was when the Powerball lottery was really big, and I'm like, man, man, if I could just get some numbers. And sure enough, the spaceship flew over and it was flashing these numbers. And you know the sad part about it? I couldn't get them fast enough. And you know what,
like
Johnny?
like the
It was
Goodyear
the
blimp.
winner. Yeah, it was, but they were the winners. I was pissed. I'm like, damn it. Oh, there it is.
Like the Goodyear blimp.
Oh,
Remember those things when they used to go over and the sign would scroll across?
it
I'm like,
was.
at night, I was like, wow, it's like an alien.
Do
Shit.
they not do that anymore?
I haven't seen that thing, outside of a football game or something where they're just taking,
Oh,
video from
yeah, yeah,
above. But
yeah.
I remember when they used to do that back in the 60s and 70s. But, anyways, um, you know, I guess, folks, you need to verify this article I saw. Speaking of spaceships and stuff, that the guy claims that his house just got burned down. He got hit by a meteor. So that's that's in the news.
Talk about somebody
That
that
was in
needs
the
to play
news.
the lottery.
Talk about somebody who hit the lottery. Jeez. Okay. Anyways,
Well, with that, this episode of the Handyman Pros radio show is winding down. Folks, we appreciate that you're listening. Please tell your friends and neighbors. Send them a link to this craziness. You know, Johnny and I, we rehearse these things extensively. not. If you didn't figure that one out, it's just, it is what it is. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send us an email, questions at handymanprosradioshow.com. Believe it or not, we actually do respond to most of our questions, unless you're trying to hook Johnny up with Russian wives. I get tons of emails from all these basic people soliciting me. Please stop soliciting me, because nothing's going to happen. Between that and we can help your business. No, you're not going to help my business. Anyway, we do have a website, handymanprosradioshow.com. We have a newsletter. You can sign up for that. And we are on Facebook at Handyman Pros. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.